Hello everybody, welcome to this first subgenre of the landscape tradition, the so-called picturesque tradition. There you can see how it's spelled. The Afrikaans, for those of you who want to know, is Picturesque. I have two T's, Picturesque. And if we talk about the interaction between landscape and us as humans, you can see there it's firstly the discovery of the landscape as a scene, and then also the artist's lordly view over the scene, which we've already encountered in the bird's eye view by Leonardo da Vinci. As you will also be able to see in the notes in the PowerPoint, the picturesque tradition developed, flourished from the 18th century into the beginning of the 19th century, and it involved the kind of a beauty which would look well in a picture. In other words, let's say you are walking down the road and you see this scene and you think to yourself, wow, that is now just so pretty, somebody must paint that. It's that that kind of an idea. Also, it's a way of approaching nature, a way of looking at it, and then, as we said, this discovery of the nature as a scene, the realization that there is something there to be looked at and something that can be painted. It's magnificent, and there's this awareness that develops in the picturesque. It's a particular quality that a scene can have. It's something that we believe it should be painted by a painter. And the picturesque means that something is pleasing. It's nice to look at. It's cute. It's warm and it's fuzzy. Basically, these things describe the picturesque. Originally, the term developed, it's something that is quaint. You know, like often we see like a patch roof house with a little dog running around. These things are quaint. They're neither beautiful nor sublime, which we'll talk about still. They are charming, these picturesque scenes. And it's something that is meant to be painted. It is cute and nice to look at. Something, it is enjoyable. Let's look at some examples. So perhaps the most influential of these picturesque artists was this Claude Lorraine. There you can see his name. He was an Italian landscape artist, and we'll still talk about it in a moment, but one of the problems or critiques that was leveled towards the picturesque, and the reason why it's sort of, to some sense, really experienced a decline in the 20th, 21st centuries, but it's quite formulaic. They all basically look the same. So here we always have some sort of a trees, like we have on this side, that frame the scene. And there's always some sort of a hills in the background, as we see here, and invariably there's a bit of a road that just sort of curves down, and just sort of filled with these really cute and nice and pretty elements. A little bit of an ideal landscape as well, not a landscape that we would necessarily actually encounter. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this for brevity's sake. You can go and read also about it in the notes added to the PowerPoint. Some features of the picturesque tradition that you can see, 18th and 19th centuries, the discovery of landscape as a scene, Claude Lorraine, who we've just looked at, also Salvatore Rosa and Gaspard Poussin, three of the most prolific of these picturesque landscape artists. I'm going to skip the ideal generalized landscape, and just before I get to that, talk about the grand tour, picturesque travel. This developed from the sort of the 1800s, became more fashionable for English aristocracy, some lord or a person you've now finished school, to take the grand tour, to go to Europe and travel to Europe to complete your education. And now, if you're not English or used to the English countryside, all of a sudden you are now in Europe. You see an Italian landscape, you see a French landscape, and you see a Spanish landscape. These are foreign landscapes that are different to the generalized landscape that you are used to. I'll talk about the clawed glass again in a moment. The next slide. Artists who enjoyed the picturesque tradition. There's also this the pleasure of ruins. If you walking down the lane and all of a sudden there's this building in ruins, maybe halfway covered in vines or whatever, they're irregularly shaped and there's different colors. People would find a certain pleasure in it. They enjoyed it. Also, this evening mood, a walk in the evening, the birds are chirping, it's dusk, the sun is starting to set, it's cooling down a little bit. It has its own particular mood. I'm sure you guys know what mood I mean. Also, the notion of gardening, in particular, the French in particular had this very formulaic, very particular kind of a way of gardening that was very rigid. And the picturesque gardening is, as you can see there, it's more free and irregular. It's sort of allowing nature to take over rather than it being a formal garden. And then, of course, just plainly the power of nature. I've already mentioned nature taking over the ruins. So nature will always regain control the moment that we leave. That's what makes it so awesome. So I spoke about the clawed, or just mentioned the clawed glass briefly in the previous slide. The clawed glass is this thing over here that Thomas Gainsborough has drawn here, and you can read in the notes as well. It's a round glass that has been it's convex, it's round, small mirror that has been tinted or colored to a black color, dark color. It's the size of a pocketbook. You can carry it in a case. And then artists, travelers, landscape connoisseurs, all these guys would walk around with this clawed glass. And then if they saw now a scene that they thought, okay, wow, I must paint this, they would put the glass there, and then they would actually look at the reflection of the scene in the glass, the color of the reflection of the color in the darkly shaped, darkly tinted clawed glass, the convex shape of it would then create this sort of a quality, a tonal quality and a color quality to the scene that gave it this sort of a painterly, picturesque ambiance. It made it more quaint and charming and pretty. Okay, so where does the notion of the picturesque come from, I hear you asking? A man called Huberdale Price, there you can see when he lived, he wrote an essay on the picturesque as compared with the sublime and the beautiful. Now, the sublime, which we will actually talk about again when it's the last slideshow on the landscape. There you can see the sublime is harsh to the senses. In comparison, beautiful things soothe our senses. This is now Huberdale Price speaking. And then picturesque things, he said, they tickle our senses. We enjoy them, they're fun, they're not too scary, it's not just pretty, it tickles our fancy. Just included this just briefly. Both Immanuel Kant and Edmund Burke, who we will refer to specifically in the slideshow on the Sublime, but both of them wrote essays and treatises, dissertations on the Sublime and the Beautiful. And then Uvedale Price, of course, then distinguished the picturesque as well as that which is neither beautiful nor sublime. A third category of things that are attractive and beguiling, but on a smaller scale than those grand and terrifying things which we will get to of the sublime. We've now spoken about the foreign travel, and then one particular development from this was the discovery of Africa. First artists in South Africa were primarily landscape artists, and one reason for this was the very fact that here we are in a foreign landscape as compared to the European landscape. This is just an example I included just to show once again to reconnect with our initial slides class on European perspectives on Africa and African perspectives on Europe. Here they talk about the dangerous tiger attack in Africa. Now this already should you should think, what? Because tigers are not found in Africa. Tigers are in India, and then this animal here clearly is neither lion nor tiger. It's a very strange animal hybrid creature there. But so clearly not exactly the landscape that, or in any case, the inhabitants of the landscape that we would think to find. But what makes this picturesque? We've already spoken about this formula. Check it. We have the frame of trees, both on this side and very much so on this side. We have the hills there in the background and the path that leads from the middle ground down to the back. Very much South African example of a quaint, picturesque scene. Okay, this is a very cool example. Thomas Baines, whose name you might have heard before. Now, he was an Englishman, but an artist and an explorer who came to this southern Africa. He traveled broader than just South Africa, traveled into Zimbabwe as well, went up the Zambezi River, traveled around the Victoria Falls, so went into Namibia and Botswana as well, so quite an explorer. There you can see the sort of the middle of the 1800s. Now, at a stage, he met another explorer, James Chapman, and the two of them traveled up the Zambezi River, and they both actually even published books on their travels. Thomas Baines, by the way, was also particularly influential in the discovery of gold in South Africa. You'll see in the landscape slideshow, landscape PowerPoint, the original one, there's even images of paintings that Thomas Baines had made on the discovery of gold. But that being said, so in this particular painting, this guy that he had met, James, this is a painting of their travels as Thomas Baines and James Chapman were now traveling up the Zambezi. This guy here setting up his camera, that is actually James Chapman. Here they are. There's their wagons. You're still traveling with wagons now. You know how long ago it was. And here they are now relaxing underneath this mokiri tree. Now, this is an interesting example because it shows the social relations between the Africans and the Europeans. The so-called, this is called a colonial space. You can see the European guy with his technologies, setting up the camera, and you can see these guys posing really. They want to be photographed, but this guy, James Chapman, in comparison to, for example, these women here, still in the traditional African way, carrying water on their heads. Two worlds colliding really in this one painting. And then just also to mention this, the wagons here that I've already referred to being here symbols then of the travel and the exploration that these guys undertook. Not going to talk too much about this, just included it for interest's sake. This is Bloemfontein, 1851. This painting is in Olivenays, so if you wanted to see it, do go to Olivenays and have a look. And maybe if you really squint, perhaps you'll be able to see the university here somewhere, maybe somewhere Mimosa Mall. That's just a joke, by the way, guys. Lighting the mood. Okay, so we're talking about the artist's lordly view, this idea of and domestication. Everything that I can see, as far as I can see, as far as the horizon can stretch, belongs to me. I can do with it what I will, and nobody can say anything against me because I am in charge of it. I am here, put over it. Really, according to some would say biblical law. Okay, so I included this work really because it also includes this. This, by the way, well, these are Native Americans and they are looking at this spiral over here. That spiral is called the Spiral Jetty. It's a work of land art by the artist Robert Smithson. Iconic piece of land art. What is land art? Artists at a stage in around about the 70s, late 60s, 70s, started to revolt against the confines of the gallery space. They wanted to break free of the gallery, and also in particular this idea of the commercialization of art. You cannot sell land art. It is out there. People have to travel to see it. It's not to be bought or sold. It has no, in that sense, monetary value. And so it revolts against the gallery system. Why the Great Salt Lake? Utah once again. And this is specifically called Rosal Point, which you can see in the slide notes as well. Robert Smithson chose this spot because of the red color of the water of the lake here, because it evokes the idea of blood, right? And blood, of course, is that which gives us life. Salt as well. We need salt to survive. Pardon me. I'm going to move to the next slide. There you go. There you can see it from another angle. So this was a massive piece of work called Landscape Architecture / Sculpture. This jetty juts around 1,500 feet into the Great Salt Lake, and more than 60,000 tons of rock and earth had to be moved by trucks and front loaders and so on to create this jetty. And there you can see it has this red color as well. This red water blood notion is very important. This our blood is what makes us alive, really. Here's another view, a little bit more of a close-up of the salt and of the rocks. You can go and see and have a look in the slideshow, the original slideshow. There are quite a number of images from the Spiral Jetty. It's a really a cool work. Robert Smithson also developed the idea of the non-site. Now, with non-site, he means the idea of a container. So even in that sense already, a gallery can also be called a non-site, because a gallery is also a space that contains other things. But now beyond that, we now said already these land artists, they wanted to break free of the confines of the gallery. So Robert Smithson went outside of the gallery. He even went outside of the city. He went to nature scene, somewhere that was non-urban. And there, as you can see here, he brought these rocks that are in these containers into the gallery. So basically the actual place, the place where he got these rocks in Franklin, New Jersey, that is the site. And then bringing those into the gallery, now this place then is now, as you can see the title, a non-site. Here's another example. More and more, Robert Smithson started using natural materials. Salt, as we saw, earth, dirt, rocks. So this is a mound of ground, of earth, of dirt, but up here there is a piece of glass or a mirror that now can also be reflective. So non-sites and non-sites, the notion of non-sites is bringing the outdoors indoors. It's moving out of the studio, moving out of the city, re-establishing contact with nature, with the real, and then bringing these sites back into the gallery to there then be exhibited. There are more examples of such non-sites in the original slideshow as well. Please go and have a look and see what they are. Okay. Jaco Spies, name you can see there, he actually had an entire exhibition of landscapes, digital and web-based landscape art that he had made for an exhibition in Livernois. He in particular for this exhibition questioned the notion of control over the landscape. He made use of landscape art, cartography that we've already encountered, topography. This one is called reflection, and this sort of this reflection shape that we see here, well, this reflection, I suppose I should just do that, is supposed to be the same, loosely resembling the shape of the Free State cartographically. It's also sort of a bean shaped, but then superimposed on top of this are tiny little scissors that are like locusts, which then eat the landscape, devouring everything. So this is actually this devouring is a metaphorical deconstruction of who the landscape belongs to. This is another example from that exhibition. Incidentally, there are quite a number of Jaco Spies' works from that exhibition in the original slideshow, so please go and have a look at those as well. And if you have questions about them, please ask. This one is called the Stardust Fontaine, and it's about the often violent nature of land reclamation and land redistribution and land acquisition. And so you can see actually this is the landscape here it's been cut over here. Even here you can see the marks still of some sharp object making those lines. So Jaco actually, he made a landscape and then he cut it into smaller pieces, showing this violence that can occur on a landscape. The Stardust Fontaine, by the way, is a farm not in the Eastern Free State district, and what he is trying to say in the end is he's questioning this notion of who controls the natural world, who controls the landscape. Talking about our lordly view, we would like to think that it's us, but is it really? You must ask yourself that question. Okay, I just quickly want to mention this. You know, the projection that we normally see of the globe is not quite like this. This one, the continents are quite elongated. Look how long and thin Africa is. The same here, look how thin this one is. Long. The projection that we normally see, now I think it's the MacArthur, but don't quote me on that. But the point is, actually we live on a sphere and a globe, right? So to project something that is round in 3 dimensions onto a flat 2-dimensional space means that there must be some sort of a distortion. Even the map that we are used to seeing is not how it actually looks. This is another projection by this guy, Arno Peters, called the Peters projection. And there are actually numerous projections of the globe onto a 2D surface. And somebody who plays with that idea is Mona Hatoum, the artist. She's an Iranian artist, but I think she's also quite she works a lot in the West. Here you can see she used the Peters projection, and we see the same elongated continents and the same thinning as we saw. Mona Hatoum actually made quite a number of landscapes in this hotspot exhibition. There's one that she made, for example, using marbles. She placed Africa with marbles, and there's a third one that you can also go and see in that original slideshow where she used the globe, but instead of it being round, it's actually a cube, which is very cool. Try and think about that. The Earth, not round, but as a cube. It looks completely different. I included this just so that you don't forget about the fact that we have South African, contemporary South African landscape artists as well. This was supposed to be in one of your seminars, William Kentridge's Tapestries series. This, as you can see, it's a map, already important point. Johannesburg there, cartography, and then these office furniture people that we have here and here, and they are walking across this Johannesburg landscape. So we've already spoken about land art just briefly in terms of Robert Smithson. Here's another one, he's a British artist, Richard Long, also a land artist. And so these guys, they made interventions into the land, whether by marking or shaping or building or changing or restructuring the landscape in some way, all to get out of the gallery space. Earth was one of the dirt, like we saw with that mound, for example, that Robert Smithson made, but then also stones. If you think about the Stone Age, that's humans, us, have had a very long history with stone. It's durable, it doesn't break. We have gravestones, they're very important in our culture. Even artists use stones for lithographs. But then wood can also be used in land art. We like to burn things. From burning out of this destruction, often new things are created. Snow, which of course we don't really have around here, but snow is something else, once again, that natural thing that can be manipulated. We also like the shape of things. We like straight lines. Straight lines, we find them enjoyable. circles even more so. Now, we love circles when things are round, and it feels full and whole and complete. We really enjoy circles. Pyramids, of course, are another one that we really enjoy. So all these land artists made some sort of interventions in the landscape using these natural materials. Okay, the last thing that we are going to look at in terms of the picturesque are Christo and Jean-Claude's surrounded islands. They made these, as you can see there, for in Miami, in Florida, in America, and they took 11 of these small islands that you can see here. There's another one. There's another one, and they surrounded them with lots and lots and lots of square meters of floating pink polypropylene fabric that they surrounded the islands with for a period of about 2 weeks in the early 1980s. And then, of course, in this bay near Miami, it was then open for tourists to visit. I'm going to show you the next one. If it is, there we go. There you can see the surrounded islands. They are almost like a giant walking across the water. His footspoor, what are those? His foot tracks as they walk across the bay, surrounded by these really bright and luminous pink fabric. Okay, guys, that's my story for the picturesque. The next one is the pastoral landscape.